Okay, so this is Hamilton. His name is Hamilton. His name is Hamilton. His name is Hamilton. He's gonna get shot. He's also kind of an asshole, but we're gonna overlook that because he has protagonist syndrome. So check this. He immigrated from the Caribbean to America where he met this guy called Aaron Burr, who's also kind of an asshole, but we'll get to that. They talk about politics, specifically America's independence, and Hamilton comes off a little bit strong and Burr's kind of like, whoa bro, calm down. But these three other guys who happen to be at the same bar are really into Alexander Swagger and decide to add him to their squad. Quick rundown. This is John Lawrence, whose bromance with Hamilton went on to inspire a multitude of fanfics. This is Hercules Mulligan, a living legend who gets laid a lot and can probably make a bangin' tuxedo. And this is Marquis de Lafayette, who is definitively the most badass Frenchman you will ever know. Anyway, they all go to grab a pint, and Hamilton low-key has an existential crisis, but it's fine, it happens a lot with him. Jump cut to the center of New York, and we meet three wealthy sisters who are taking in the sights and basking in the brewing of a revolution. They are Angelica, Eliza, and Peggy, also known as the Schuyler sisters. Peggy's really not feeling this atmosphere and is high-key kind of worried about the war, but Angelica, who's all for innovation, low-key tells her to grow a pair, all the while projecting some of the biggest big dick energy I've ever seen. You go, girl. I do feel bad for Peggy, though. Poor Peggy. Moving on, after Hamilton tears into Samuel Seabury, a bishop who was publicly talking shit, we are introduced to our fabulous British monarch, George III. He essentially tells America to shut the bloody hell up and submit to his power in a semi-homoerotic fashion. This leads us into the meat of the American Revolution. Did someone say George Washington? Yes, George is here and he's trying to lead this revolution, but it's kind of difficult when your army's comprised of a bunch of discount pussies. Anyway, while he's mulling over how rough this war is, he's approached by Aaron Burr. You remember Burr, right? Burr. He offers to help George with the war effort, but is interrupted when Hamilton arrives, and as soon as he does, Burr gets yeeted out the room. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. You see where this is going, right? Anyway, because of that one time Hamilton low-key had the klepto trait and stole British cannons, George decides to give Hamilton a job as his aides de camp. A little later down the line, Hamilton and squad are invited to a ball at the Schuyler residence. Oh, and Burr's there too, I guess. Ooh, it looks like Eliza might have the hots for Hamilton. She tells her sister Angelica about it, and being the living legend that she is, she decides to introduce them. They fall in love. Hamilton has a little monologue about how he promises to love and care for Eliza for as long as he lives. We'll see how that turns out. And then they get married. It's all very cute. But wait, there's more. It turns out Angelica was in love with Alexander all along. What? She introduced them because she knew her sister was in love with him, among other reasons. And she wanted to see her sister happy. We'll see how that turns out. After the wedding, the squad get a little tipsy and oh look, it's Burr. He actually showed up. He says congratulations to Alexander, and that's when Alex gets the hot tea on Burr's current love life. Apparently he's been hitting up this chick who's married to a British officer. Yeah, hot tea. Alexander leaves and Burr has a little moment to himself. We find out quite a bit about him, a few details on his past, and how he's low-key envious of Hamilton's ability to act recklessly, yet still achieve so much in life. Burr's still waiting on his time to shine, and he is waiting good. But moving on, Hamilton really wants to get out on the field and start kicking some British ass, but Washington's all like, nuh-uh man, not today, we need you alive. Instead of promoting Hamilton, Washington promotes Charles Lee, who is, you guessed it, a grade A pussy. This leads to Charles trying to retreat prematurely during battle. After that goes down, Charles starts talking shit about Washington behind his back, which really rubs Hamilton the wrong way. Washington tells Hamilton not to do anything about it, so he doesn't. But he's not about to stop Lawrence. Lawrence challenges Lee to a duel and wins. But oh no, here comes General Washington and he looks pissed. Alex and George fight for a bit before Alex gets triggered by George calling him son, which results in George sending Alexander home away from the war. Surprise, Eliza's pregnant, but even better, Lafayette's here to kick some British ass! He kicks ass alright, and he kicks it hard. He's coming in, guns a-blazing, ships a-sailing. When it comes down to the Battle of Yorktown, who does he suggest George Washington bring in to end this goddamn war? You guessed it, Captain America. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. It was Alex. Woo. Hamilton comes back to command, and he has a moment with Washington where Washington essentially tells him, hey bro, if you mess this up, it's gonna be engraved in history for the rest of time. Nice talk. Hamilton and Lafayette give each other props and then it's straight into battle. Hercules Mulligan comes out guns a-blazing after pulling some double agent shit, spying on the British. Eventually the British surrender and the Americans win the war. Yay! Oh, and John Lawrence dies in action. Yeah, it's rough, buddy. Right after the war, both Hamilton and Burr have a baby. Not together, just, you know, they had their respective babies. They both go back to New York with an intention of pursuing law. But for some strange reason, Hamilton's hustling up the ranks a lot faster than Burr is. Hamilton starts spitting bars about what he sees for the future of this country. And my god, is he cocky. He even comes forward with a plan for the new government system. Burr gets a little irritated about this. I mean, what does Hamilton know, right? Why is he always assuming he's the smartest in the room, huh? What's his logic skill anyway? When Hamilton comes knocking on Burr's door asking for help defending the new United States Constitution, Burr turns him down. Something along the lines of not wanting to count his eggs before they've hatched. Hamilton ends up writing a document defending the Constitution with James Madison and John Jay, but all of this kind of results in him neglecting his wife just a little bit. Angelica goes to London and gets married to a rich guy. When George Washington gets elected to be the first president of the USA, he asks Hamilton to run the Treasury Department. Naturally, Hamilton says yes, despite his wife's protests. But ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. It's the one, the only, Thomas Jefferson! No, that is not Lafayette wearing a different suit, I swear. Yes, the Mad Lad was away being the ambassador to France, but he is back to organize the Democratic Republican Party to oppose the Federalists with his Virginian homeboy, James Madison. No, that is not Hercules in a different suit, I swear. And boy, does Jefferson oppose them hard. Washington hosts a cabinet meeting to address Hamilton's financial plan to implement debt assumption. And Thomas is like, hell no, we already done paid ours in Virginia. Get your damn taxes out of my face, bruh. Jump cut. Hamilton writes a semi-flirtatious letter to Angelica, and it turns out she's coming to visit. Alexander's 9-year-old son Philip performs a cute little poem. No, that is not Lawrence, he's dead, remember? And Angelica arrives from London. The Schuyler sisters, minus Peggy, cause who cares about her, try to convince Alexander to go upstate with them to take a break from work, but being the legacy-obsessed loser that he is, Alexander decides that getting his plan through Congress is more important than his family. This leads to perhaps the biggest mistake of his life, and that's kinda sugarcoating it. Whilst his family are away, he happens upon a woman caught in hard times. Maria Reynolds. No, that is not Peggy wearing a different outfit. Her husband, who was abusing her, has apparently vanished, so Hamilton offers her a loan. He walks her back, and when they get there, she, offers him a little more. They get the nasty on, and suddenly Hamilton's regularly cheating on his wife. Uh-oh! Mariah's husband found out, and he is pissed. Not because he's sleeping with his wife, silly, because he's not getting paid for it. So Hamilton gives the guy some hush money, and continues banging Maria. Hey, you guys remember Burr, right? Well, he's still here. Burr. He's not doing too good. You see, Hamilton, Madison, and Jefferson decided to smooth over their differences over a private meeting. No one really knows what happened during their little get-together, but it ended with the Virginians gaining the national capital, and Hamilton gaining full financial power. Crazy, right? And Burr is hecka jealous. And boy does it show! Cause the next thing he does is change parties to take Hamilton's father-in-law's seat in the Senate. And Hamilton ain't too happy about that. But it doesn't matter, cause Hamilton's about to win over Washington with a refusal to provide aid to the French against the English. All of this really ticks off Thomas Jefferson. He loves France, and I mean, can you blame him? The food is très bien. Jefferson, Madison, and Burr start talking shit about Hamilton, and they decide to start digging for dirt on him. And boy did they strike gold, but we'll get back to that. Moving on, Hamilton finds out from Washington that Jefferson is resigning so he can run for presidency. He then finds out that Washington's not planning to run for president again, which kind of throws Hamilton a little. But he helps him draft his address and reluctantly sees Washington out on his retirement. Meanwhile, George III is literally cackling at what a mess America's politicians are in, with John Adams as their new president. Oh, and Jefferson's vice president, by the way. Adams then fires Hamilton and calls him a couple nasty words. Hamilton then fires back at full force, tarnishing his own reputation. But wait, it gets worse. Jefferson, Madison, and Burr decide now's the best time to let Hamilton know about the hot tea they have on him. They've been collecting check stubs made out to a Mr. James Reynolds, which amounts to roughly $1,000. And they wrongly assume that Hamilton's been embezzling government funds. And then Hamilton's all like, well, joke's on you, I didn't embezzle shit. I just cheated on my wife and paid off her pimp. Even though cheating on your wife is kind of a dick move, it's also not a federal crime. So the Democratic Republican squad decide to drop their case. But they still have dirt on him, so they could very well tarnish his reputation permanently. After an existential crisis about life and power and legacy and all that bullshit, Hamilton decides to publish the Reynolds pamphlet, publicly confessing to cheating on his wife. It's pretty rough. Eliza is justifiably heartbroken and pissed off, so she decides to burn all the letters he wrote her that could have ever redeemed him of being a good person. Not that we ever thought he was a good person to begin with. Angelica returns from London to comfort her sister, which for some reason surprises Hamilton. Like, bro, the world does not evolve around you. And Angelica really chews him out. I mean, it's... Ooh. Fast forward, and Hamilton's son Philip is now a full-grown graduate. Ignore the fact that he looked like a full-grown adult at age 9. He's a big boy now. Philip hears this guy named George Eaker talking public shit about his dad and decides to challenge him to a duel. He gets advice from his old man, and Alex tells him to shoot in the sky instead of at George. And comes the saddest part of the musical where he passes away. I totally didn't bawl my eyes out or anything. Shut up! The death of their son brings Alexander and Eliza back together for the first time in years. They share a tender moment of mutual mourning and decide to put the past behind them, eventually resuming their relationship as it once had been. Which I really can't say was a good call, but okay. Jump cut! We're at the election of 1800, and it's pretty much Jefferson against Burr. People really like Burr, even though he hasn't really expressed a strong political stance. He's just kind of vague about it, but hey, he seems like a nice guy. With the country split on opinion, people start looking at Hamilton for a statement on opinion. It takes him a hot minute to reply, because he's kind of enjoying a quiet life after the passing of his son. But eventually he comes forward in support of... Jefferson! What? I know, right? This leads to Jefferson winning the election and becoming the next president of the United States. Oh well, at least Burr gets to be vice president. Oop, never mind! Jefferson's kind of bitter about the fact that Burr ran against him in the first place, so looks like plans are about to change. Aaron ends up blaming Alexander not just for losing out on the election, but for losing out in life. He confronts him about it, and the two exchange a series of passive-aggressive yet surprisingly civil correspondence. This ends with Burr challenging Hamilton to a duel. And we all know how that turns out. Burr shoots, Hamilton aims at the sky, and dies in the process. Burr goes down in history as the villain of Hamilton's story, and it all comes to an end. There is a lot I left out, including the musical's overarching themes of purpose, and what it truly means to make an impact in the world. In the end, it comes down to deciding whether or not you cherish the little things in life, like finding love, having friends, or caring for a family. Or if you're going to obsess over achieving something more, and something big, and wanting more, and building a legacy, so people will remember your name. Personally, my take from it is that the little things can be worth a lot more than the big picture. Hamilton worked so hard to maintain this huge image, but in the end, it's his wife that really mattered, and his kids that really mattered. If you haven't seen the musical for yourself, I cannot recommend it more. Lin-Manuel Miranda really outdid himself with this. I rarely say this, but this musical is genuinely up to the hype. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see more of me, feel free to subscribe. I'm also on Twitter, so feel free to go check that out. And I will see y'all later. Bye bye!